Hello, everyone. I am Chris Parrish, who is still apparently learning the StreamYard thing because I am dumb. But we are back with Love Reacts for the week of professional wrestling. I am joined once again by Alex at Ecto Guy, and I am also pleasantly joined by now Astrid, aka The Natural. And I am Astrid, the first thing. For everyone who may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born in Puerto Rico. I live in Orlando now, so I'm really close to NXT, and I've been enjoying wrestling for a while now. One of my favorites is Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, and right now I love people like Seth Rollins, for example, and Kevin Owens, to just name a few. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Awesome. Well, we are very happy to have you, and Alex. Again, we are happy that you are back returning. Ed is not feeling well, so he is not going to be with us this week. So anybody who's a fan of Ed and doesn't like me, then sorry. I apologize. But with that being said, we are here reacting to and kind of just talking about the week that was professional wrestling. And I kind of think we started off with Sunday Brunch talking about Nick Gage and Matt Cardona, so we can start there. Astrid, I know you probably, I don't know if you've seen it, but what were your thoughts about Gage and Cardona, and what were your impressions and thoughts about that match?
I haven't seen it. I'm really not a deathmatch kind of person, but seeing all the buzz and all the pictures and videos and everything, I feel like I already saw it in a way. But I think it was really nice to see something different from Matt. I feel like we're not used to seeing him in that kind of environment, and it's just nice to see somebody branch out and do something they haven't done before.
Yeah, I think like we, Alex, you and I both talked about how we kind of felt like he kind of became a man in the pro wrestling world, because it was like when Edge fought Mick Foley, when Randy Orton fought Mick Foley in those hardcore matches, they kind of took a new Edge, no pun intended, but a new direction to their characters, and they kind of propelled themselves into a new light. And maybe this is exactly what Matt Cardona needs, because he was kind of typecast a lot. It's just that Jersey boy, kind of Guido kind of a type of a character. So it's, personally, I think it's nice to see Cardona looked in a different spotlight. Alex, is there anything like maybe you want to touch on that we didn't maybe cover last week?
I got a chance to actually watch the match following Sunday Brunch, and going back and thinking about it, I still love it. It was so good, not just from a fan's perspective, but from a wrestler's perspective. It was a very smart match. There were very smart spots. Just even in the beginning when Gage broke a light tube over his head, and Matt was kind of like, screw this, and started running for the back. Like, it told a very good story of like how he was kind of not ready to start doing this type of match, but then evolved and embraced it, and eventually became the GCW champion. It was just overall, it was really well done.
Yeah. Hey, Alex and Astrid, do you know where you can become a champion in the fitness world?
RK Athletics?
The RK Athletics, because
Hey!
I forgot to plug our sponsor at the beginning of this show. And RK Athletics is the place you want to check out all your fitness deals, as we have Mighty Joe taking a stroll, joining us today. Mighty Joe, how are you? Nice shirt, by the way.
Yeah, not too bad. Hey, can you guys hear me all right?
Oh, yeah, we can definitely hear you.
I'm sorry, what'd you say? No.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm just kind of out and about, heard the news and whatnot, and so I will be getting to the studio here in about 10 minutes or so I can get into a better setting for you guys. But yeah, there's been some breaking news happening that we're going to talk about later, right?
Yeah, thanks for just killing our mojo, Joe.
We've already covered it. We've already covered it. You're too late. It's too late.
Yeah. But no, if you haven't heard, breaking news, as Astrid was the one who reported it to us in our little group chat, Bray Wyatt has been released from the WWE. No word onto why, only speculation. And if you want speculation that has absolutely no factual information, right here might be the best spot for it.
Best place to come.
So I also want to invite anybody who is listening. Joe, I'm going to have to say your wind is killing us right now, by the way. So if you can please not fart, that would be great. But no, I do want to tell our asset chat, if you are involved and you are watching and you want to be a little bit more interactive and tell us what we could talk about in this, we definitely appreciate it. We want to make sure that this weekly React show is as interactive as humanly possible. We want to know what you think just as much as we want to talk about what we think. So make sure that you're incorporated as well, because that is what matters in this show, as we do have Megsy. Hey, squad. Hello, Megsy. Welcome aboard. But yeah, no, Bray Wyatt released from the WWE. I'm going to go around the panel, starting with Alex. Your thoughts about this news, and what do you think is going to happen next, or why do you think it's happened to begin with?
Well, I mean, it's very unsettling. Just from the speculation of why he might have left, whether it be for mental issues or for professional issues with the E. Yeah, I actually really enjoy Bray Wyatt and everything that he's brought to us, from Husky Harris to the Wyatt family, all the way up to the Fiend. It's been a wild ride so far, and I'm only hoping to see where he goes and excited to see what he's going to do next.
Astrid, your thoughts on Bray Wyatt, as you were the breaker of the news?
Yeah, I didn't think it was real at first. I was really shocked, but like Alex said, it makes me wonder if it's had to do with Brody's death and his mental health ever since that happened, or if it's something like he wants to branch out and do something different and they don't want to go ahead and do it. It's just a matter of see, the reasoning why, because it's definitely shocking. It makes me wonder if it's just him today or if it's more releases coming as well based on how it's been lately.
Yeah. And Joe, since you've heard the news, you've had the time to kind of stop, smell the roses, and walk around. What are your opinions on Bray Wyatt being released from the World Wrestling Entertainment?
My best guess estimate is that it's likely a combination of the mental health issues that could have been a possibility. Again, we don't know for certain, and creative difference. I think it's likely a combination of the two things, and it's just too much on his plate, and he just went, what, guys, I need some space for the time being, and it's likely probably as simple as it is.
Yeah, something I do want to ask the chat, because he seems like someone who would be absolutely able to have as much time off if he needed for any personal problem. It seems like WWE has been okay with that in the past. One thing I'm led to believe is if he's actually asking, or if this is the case, I don't think WWE would flat out release him. I don't think he's a talent that they would release, not even for financial thing. He just brings in too much money with merchandise, in my opinion. But when it comes to him, I wonder if this is maybe Bray Wyatt choosing to stop wrestling entirely. And I'm wondering if this is one where maybe, because there are certain guys that will say they just don't want to go anywhere else. They just want to be WWE. Edge has pretty much been that guy. Randy Orton has been that guy. And I can see Bray Wyatt being that guy as well. I could be wrong. He could go to an AEW. He could go somewhere else. But what are the potential thoughts that maybe this is it for Bray Wyatt in a wrestling ring? I'll kind of go back clockwise now. Joe, your thoughts on maybe Bray Wyatt taking a leave of professional wrestling?
I'm not so sure about that. 'Cause, I mean, he's somebody that clearly loves the business aspect of it, loves playing the character. I don't see him being done just yet. Like I said, this just could well be him going, you know what, guys, I need to actually step away for a while, and then I'll come back when I'm ready.
Yeah. But do you think that if that was the case, he would have been released from a contract, or do you think it could have just been of like,
In the
this?
exclusive thing too, like I mean, we saw with Braun Strowman. He said he wasn't going to wrestle anywhere else, and we hear now he's signed to do a show over in Qatar. So I mean, everybody's loyal until the right money comes along.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a fact.
No, like Astrid, what are your thoughts of maybe Bray Wyatt? Because like I'm saying this based out of the fact that we know how much Eddie Guerrero's death impacted other superstars to the point of mental instability and whether or not they question whether or not this was a life they wanted to continue to live. We do have to remember that all these men and women have families outside of this, and they do sacrifice a lot of time away. And maybe this COVID could have been a time to kind of reflect of how important that time was. With Bray Wyatt now having that new, and again, like another new child, I go to Astrid, like, what are your thoughts on him possibly taking a leave from professional wrestling?
Yeah, to me, like mental health, like at least is a priority. It just, as a fan, of course, you kind of want to see that superstar get like a proper send off and have like a good match and see them go off and say bye to the fans if you don't see them again. So if it's a case like that's kind of upsetting now to see him say goodbye to WWE Universe. But at the same time, his mental health is a priority and his family as well. But that's his future and his present. So he has to take care of himself to take care of his family as well.
Yeah, and it's just a situation that we don't know much of yet, so we're just clearly speculating. Alex, kind of your thoughts on, perhaps my opinion on what could happen.
I mean, yeah, definitely. First and foremost, mental health and mental stability should become before anything else. Even for myself, I've left jobs because it just was wearing me down too much. And with the passing of his good friend John Hubbard, Brody Lee, Luke Harper, what do you want to call him, it probably has been a very tough time for him. So for him to want to step away, I can definitely see that. But for him just to leave indefinitely, I don't know, because he's been around the business for so long, and when you're around it for so long, it's ingrained into you. It kind of runs through your blood, and it's something that he may not want to necessarily completely step away from, but just take the time, get himself in check, and then maybe step back in to wherever he wants to get back to.
Yeah, and by no means are we actually saying this is a reason of like why he's leaving or why he's been released. We don't want to say it is a mental issue until we actually have evidence or proof that it is. We're just speculating on what we've heard throughout the last kind of year of him, and it has been speculated that he did need a time away after WrestleMania to handle the news. And a guy that I know the Wyatts are actually tied to, and that is the DiBiase's in the sense of this. We saw Ted DiBiase Jr. kind of do that. Like, he stepped away from the world of professional wrestling when really he was kind of at a peak in his career. And it was almost like just stopping right on the dime. Like, so it was very, very weird to see that. So like, there's a lot of reasons to think of why Bray Wyatt could be, why he left WWE. It's very shocking. And then I think that's something we can all universally agree with. So With that being said, do we have favorite Bray Wyatt moments in the WWE so far? Astrid, I'll start with you. Like, just kind of like if by chance we don't get to see him in a ring or in WWE, like, what's been your favorite Bray Wyatt moment so far?
Oof, that's a tough one. I feel like I enjoyed a lot of what he did with the feed. Was hoping he would come back and do a little bit more and see something else from that, since obviously with everything with Alexa Bliss, it just started blossoming from there. So I wanted to see more from that, but it's just hard to pick just one moment. I I feel like I've enjoyed everything he's done so far, and I want to see more too.
Yeah, Alex, do you have a favorite Bray Wyatt moment that stands out to you as of today?
There's so many to choose from, like she said. Probably just the beginnings of the Wyatt family, and then what it evolved into. It was so hot and so interesting at the time for me, because I'm a big horror movie fan. So to kind of see that like interpreted into wrestling, like we've had characters like Kane and whatnot like that, but just this backwoods kind of character that the Wyatt family and Bray was definitely a breath of fresh air at the time.
Yeah, and Joe, what about you? Is there anything that has stood out to Bray that from Bray Wyatt? Like any moments?
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. I'm on the bus here. But for me, it's his match at WrestleMania with The Undertaker. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And I'm still of the school of thought that should have been a torch passing moment, and it should have been the last match for The Undertaker as well.
Yeah, like I am like if Bray Wyatt was the guy that ended the streak, I think all real pro wrestling fans would have been more acceptable than Brock Lesnar, in my opinion. I think for me too, just one of the coolest things I saw just was Bray Wyatt finally winning the WWE Championship. Yes. He's been one of the most, I don't want to even say polarizing, it's just more naturally amazing promos and just different. When you kind of go from the Waylon Mercy kind of examples of like what he was, and Waylon Mercy did have a kind of an impact on how he kind of shaped his character, but then into that Fiend and just seeing him actually be crowned a champion for that first time, I thought was really cool. One little story about him that I think really needs to be said, the name Bray Wyatt, actually, the Wyatt did come from Wyatt Earp. He admitted on I think it was a Sam Roberts podcast. But he actually had a friend named Bray from a young age who passed away. And the name Bray was always in memory of that friend. So just to give everyone a little bit of a tidbit on just a human being that Bray Wyatt is, the guy is a really good dude. Nothing but positive things I've heard from experiences from fans. So hopefully everything is okay with him. Hopefully he's doing everything he needs to just be in a better place in his life. That's the most important thing. And hopefully one day we can see him again in the professional wrestling, because that is one creative mind that just needs as much sunlight as humanly possible. Yes. He needs to grow that. But moving on.
You hit on something pretty cool there, Parrish, because I think that with that name, like if you want to come back and if you want to continue to be creative, like a Western type character. That hasn't really been done in the WWE and wrestling for a long time. I think that would be something cool if they did want to bring him back, repackage with something completely different. Yeah, like a Western style character, I think it would be really cool.
Yeah, I think the last time I've seen a Western character done in WWE, I mean, it could, like, in WWE, it might have been the Smoking Guns, but I know in just wrestling general, I mean, Hangman Adam Page right there. I mean, you can't get more Western than riding to the ring on a horse. But I mean, okay, let's transition to AEW. That's kind of a perfect thing, because we saw Hangman in action. We saw him in the big elimination between the Dark Order and the Elite. On that, we saw Kenny Omega defeat Adam Page to win that match. What are your guys' thoughts on the news now that Adam Page is no longer the man to face Kenny Omega for the AEW World Title? And I'm going to let anyone jump in because it's more fun to get that awkward silence.
So I think it's going to be, if they were going to do it all out, I'm sorry, it's in Chicago. as far as I remember it being in Chicago. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the big speculation is Punk or is Brian going to be there? And with that, like it would be a definite overshadow if he would have won the title on one of those nights. Like, hey, this is an amazing thing I did, but everybody is talking about this instead. So it's kind of like like last year they had no crowd for Mania, and they had McIntyre win the strap, but nobody was there to cheer him on. Nobody was there to celebrate with him. So it's kind of a downplayed moment. So yeah, for them to change the opponent for Kenny from Hangman, it's going to be worth it later on for Hangman when he does win the title, for it not to be overshadowed, because it's been a great story so far that they've told.
I mean, you have to at some point capitalize on that, because the Cowboy shit is still over. The crowd absolutely loves him, and if they don't ever put the title on him, you're gonna have a very disappointed audience at the very, very least.
Yeah.
And Ash, your thoughts on just kind of how this happened, or the AEW and like their match? Because I like for one, like we're kind of overshadowing the match, which I thought was pretty good. I'm still mad that one of the Jacksons couldn't get the dunk off if they're gonna make fun of the Toon Squad. The fact that he missed the dunk, like, come on, like. But anyway, Adam Page, Kenny Omega. Let's kind of stay on track, even though this is a show where we can be off the rails as humanly possible because I'm in charge. Sorry, Spencer.
At first, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I don't want them to extend it too long, just because I know the fans have been wanting this for a while, and if you keep extending it, the fans are going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen. People are already waiting for it, and at the same time, I had a feeling that it wouldn't. I guess the part with Punk and Bryan and the Dusha, that will overshadow the win. So I'm guessing they don't want anything like that to happen to Hangman. So I understand that part, but I just don't want them to extend it any longer, or maybe not even put him as champion, because that'll be disappointing.
Yeah, and like Ed chiming in saying they can't wait much longer, and I think we're agreeing. Like, he's the most natural, organic guy in that company that can become a champion since Darby Allin. I don't know if there's like much, like, he's the guy from day one that always from the elite, he just always seemed like the diamond in the rough. Like, he wasn't the big name, he wasn't the Young Bucks who transcend. I think Joe has left I think he's getting home, so he'll probably join us in a little bit.
On the professional portion, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to listen to the wind blow. But yeah, and like, I don't know, like AEW just doesn't have a lot of organic. Oh, and there it is, right back. Boom. It's almost like you didn't leave at all.
Almost.
I haven't even made a point yet.
All time, but I tried.
But yeah, and they got to, like, the timing on Britt Baker. And sorry, Britt Baker was the other one. But the timing on Britt Baker was perfect of when they decided to put the strap on her. They have to do this soon. I always envisioned that if Omega dropped the title, it was to Page, and how cool would it be if the standing thing wasn't Omega and losing to Page, it was Page winning the title, and then we got Punk, and yet a Punk and Adam Page face off. I thought that would have been absolute money, and then all of a sudden you're just setting up for the next show, which now I'm tuning in. Regardless, I'm tuning in to the next show. Punk hadn't said anything. He just showed up. He's facing off with Page. It's money written all over it.
Yeah.
So go right ahead.
I have an interesting discussion I think that we could have since you mentioned Punk. I think that we could elaborate on this a little bit, because I would be really curious, because I think I like Joe's house tour. Yes, give me a full house tour. Maybe we'll do that as a separate video sometime. I mean, then the arcade.
Love Wrestling presents Cribs.
Right now, it's covering my face here, but that's okay.
Welcome to my house.
With CM Punk. With CM Punk, what I'm thinking, I think it's great for us who are inside the current pro wrestling bubble. We're gonna pop when he comes back, obviously. What I'm thinking is bigger picture, drawing in the old audience that has gone away and the new fan. I'm wondering how they're gonna perceive that, because like I would be almost willing to like go on the street with a microphone and just say the name CM Punk to people to see what their reaction would be. Is that the wrestler that did some really, really cool stuff in WWE, or is it the guy that went over and failed at trying MMA, right? I'll be very curious to see what the reaction from the average person is, because I think that is going to be a big factor here when it comes to long-term stuff with having him part of wrestling again. Yeah, like I said, it's going to draw in the fans like us inside the pro wrestling bubble, but outside of that, what is their reaction going to be?
Yeah.
Right.
So anybody else catch your eye in AEW this week? Because I am going to get, like, I know, like, we'll get to the Jericho Nick Gage match for sure. The one thing that I think the one guy that always catches my eye in AEW is Pac. Like, I think that guy just always seems to be swept under the rug a lot in AEW. But the Andrade Pac stuff with the Lucha Brothers not being kind of there, and there's apparently a limo being coming for them, but it really makes me think that either the Lucha Brothers might turn on Pac to join Andrade, or what am I like? I don't read my notes here, or we might even just flat out see Pac and Andrade like as a feud, and color me damn okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
What are your guys' thoughts about Pac and Andrade and this whole situation? Because that was one that really caught my eye this week.
You know, a feud doesn't always have to end in a group splitting up. It's been a trope that's been done to death in professional wrestling. There's nothing wrong with just having a feud inside of a faction, you know, battling for control of the faction, or it's just a disagreement. It doesn't always have to result in, okay, you know, this team is going to split because this is happening. It's been done to death. Let's just have it be just a little infighting within the group. I think that's all it needs to be, and the match could be absolutely fantastic. Andrade and Pac, I mean, that's a money matchup.
Yeah. We'll go to Astrid. You've been too quiet for too long.
I think either way, it's a great idea. I like either way. I'm happy about it. I want to see it. I want to see both of them. If I get to see both of them, even better. I love all the talent involved, so I really don't care how it goes. I just want to see it.
Alex?
I definitely agree. These two styles are definitely going to clash well with each other. I've got time for Pac versus Andrade.
Anything like I'll stay with you, Alex. Just staying on AEW. What are some of your takeaways from that show? And then after I'll do this, we'll get to Gage and Jericho.
Oh well, honestly, I didn't get to see much of AEW, but I just, for some reason, I'm hungry for Dominoes. For some reason, I just don't understand why, though.
Well, I have some thoughts on that. You just wait.
Yeah.
Did you want a Pabst Blue Ribbon to go with that?
Maybe I don't know, but no. As far as I have no bearing on AEW right now, I don't get to watch too much of it. Kind of going back to the 10-man tag in the beginning. I don't think that the Elite needed to come out as the Toon Squad. You guys are heels.
Yeah.
You know, don't be a fan favorite kind of thing. Like, it was cool. It would have been cool if they were the faces. You know, like, awesome, let's see them play basketball, but you're a heel faction.
I think the only reason why this happened is because of the TNT connection. TNT is a sponsor of the National Basketball Association, where one of their star players, LeBron James, is the main star of Space Jam 2, New Legacy, opening in theaters near you.
And we have to remember too that Cody said in AEW, we don't have heels and good guys, we just have competitors. So.
Oh yeah, MJF is not a heel.
Not a heel at all.
He said that professional wrestling is at its best when you have good guy versus bad guy.
Yeah. Astrid, we'll turn to you. What stood out to AEW this week in your eyes that wasn't Gage versus Jericho?
It sounds funny going back to Alex, but I love the entrances. I've been watching them like every now and then. I go back and watch the clip because I love both of the entrances, like Hangman and the Dark Order. That was so good. I just want to see it again.
That was a really good promo package, yeah.
Yeah. Entrances. Who would have ever thought that maybe making a show about entrances could be a good idea? I don't know. Joe, your final thoughts on AEW. What were your takeaways before we get to Gage and Jericho?
Just like my takeaway really is the stuff with Gage and Jericho. So, I mean, that's the main reason why I tuned in. And like I said, I'll save that to when you want to bring it up. But
okay. now
my
we've read the
main-
table. Joe, start us off your takeaways about Gage and Jericho.
For those who have, those of you who tuned into Turnbuckle Talk this past week, I definitely touched on it. That I feel that bringing Nick Gage onto a platform, I guess, onto national broadcast television was a mistake. And, given the fall of kind of what's happened with this, with the awesomely timed Domino's commercial, that I was correct. I mean, now Domino's is essentially saying that, we don't really want to be on the television at the same time as you guys. This deathmatch stuff, the stuff with Cardona and Nick, I think it was really cool for what it was, but I think it was a lot more niche than I think people are giving it credit for. Because the deathmatch stuff, even Astrid, you saying, not really a deathmatch guy. Alex, kind of the same thing. It's a really, really cool thing, but it's not this big deal that a lot of people are making a big deal out of. And just this bringing Nick on to national-wide television like that, with the deathmatch style, again, it's one of these things where I think it appeals to a niche pro wrestling audience, but it's not something that's going to draw in a returning watcher or somebody that's looking at this at the first time and seeing somebody run a pizza crawl across somebody's face. It's going to be a big turnoff for a lot of people.
Astrid, we'll go to you. Your takeaways on Gage versus Jericho.
Actually, like I said, I'm not a deathmatch person, but I thought it was pretty entertaining this past week watching it. I thought it was different for me, at least, because I'm not used to watching that. So it was pretty entertaining. It's not something that I would want to see it again, though. It's just something maybe like a once in a while type of thing. I wouldn't mind it, but not something that I will watch constantly, though.
What were your thoughts about MJF saying the next labor was Juventud Guerrera? And the match, from what I understand, is Jericho must win with the move from the top rope.
That's very cool.
Yes.
Like, what are our takeaways from that? Are we excited about Hoovy? Do we not care about 1999 anymore?
It's a great shout back to the WCW era. I mean, these two guys are going to put on an awesome match. And, I mean, Hoovy's got a kind of special place in my heart, and possibly with you two, Parrish. I've been worked for CWE up in Canada. I mean, they were doing a tour in the wintertime, and the promoter, CWE, had a near fatal car crash. And Juventud Guerrera literally saved his life in that moment. Yeah. So Hoovy's got lots of cool thumbs up points for me. So I have nothing but time for a match between Chris Jericho and Juventud Guerrera. That's going to be a blast.
As long as Jericho wears his old Lionheart gear,
yes,
I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Just like what he wore from ECW One Night Stand when he faced Lance Storm. Yep. Give me that, and I'm like, okay. Give me a little bit of nostalgic, and I think that's exactly what this match would need. Yeah. I'll also turn to you. Your takeaways from Gage Jericho with the Juventud Guerrera announcement.
To me, I'm actually going to throw it back to Astrid because I want to hear what she had to say about this.
Me? Okay. No, I'm really excited about it. I don't know how it's gonna be, which is the exciting part for me. I just want to see it, and not only that, but having the crowd in there, I can't wait to see the crowd reaction whenever they kill this.
Yeah, I think, I thought about this as we were talking about it. Jericho's got to do a move from the top rope to win the match. What if he did the frog splash as kind of a throwback to Eddie? Obviously, how do you guys feel about that being the move that he chooses?
As long as it's not a flying headbutt.
Ouch. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. A shout out to Eddie in that moment would be very, very cool.
Or he could even do something to, to kind of foreshadow his next opponent, like, oh, you did, this move. Hey, I've got the guy who started doing this move before you did it. I mean, there'd kind of be like a random chance happening, but it's a possibility. I think they told a great story so far with the trials of Jericho.
No, it's been good.
Yeah. And if you guys are wondering why I'm keeping this post up, I'm doing it for two reasons. One, just to say, hey, Cody, did you know I was the very first match of said Clandestine? And two, I also beat the guy who created Clandestine last weekend. Just wanted to put myself over. But then Ed coming in and saying the juice is back, and I love it.
Juice is man. Yeah.
Oh, dear. But with that, yes. As long as it's a great match, I don't think anybody will have any problems with it. My only thing is with nostalgic acts in wrestling now, if it's one of those things where it sucks, and you're wondering why didn't said person get some time on TV, then what was the point of this? Like, you couldn't have elevated somebody else. And like, you're gonna get that every time a nostalgic act comes back. We see it all the time in WWE because they're all about their nostalgic acts. But before we get to WWE, I also want to give one shout out, and that is FTR versus Ortiz and Santana. I love tag team wrestling. I believe that it's some of the best pro wrestling out there when done right. These guys do it right. What were your guys' takeaways on that before we go to the world of WWE for the week?
Didn't get to see the match, but I heard that I believe Dash suffered a. I'm not even sure if that's his name that he's going by now, but yeah, one of them suffered a pretty nasty injury, and I just hope that he's okay and he recovers pretty quick. Because FTR, I've got, they're a great tag team. They have that very great dynamic of kind of being like an old school Ole and Arn kind of tag team. So I hope to see them back pretty quick.
It looked like he was on the top turnbuckle and he got kind of knocked down. And as he was coming down, like his forearm caught part of the actual turnbuckle in between the post and the turnbuckle, and like basically like ripped his arm open essentially.
Oh, wow.
For a better term.
Okay.
It's one of those moments where, having talked and interviewed a lot of wrestlers, like guys who can like, fight through and push through stuff like that, I have a tremendous amount of respect for, not just throwing in the towel in the match after something like that happens. Props to those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely don't be a Sin Cara and call the match just because you dislocated a finger.
My finger hurts.
Yeah.
Oh god, and we can talk about Sin Cara this week. That's the unfortunate part. But Astrid, Santino, Ortiz, FTR, your thoughts?
I have been looking forward to the match, and it bumped me that it was like it gets always cut short because of the injury. So I want to see that again. I want that redo there. I wanted Santana Ortiz to win, but obviously being with what happened, they just like they cut it short. They just like pin it, let's go, so we can check on Cash. So I understand, but I hope he's okay because I'm like it didn't look so good from my point of view. I don't want to see it again.
No, and like first off, I think we all want to just make sure that he has a speedy recovery and that everything is okay. But two, I think it is also nice just to see that tag team wrestling was a staple at our show with actual tag teams. It would be really nice one day if the next time these two teams face, it's for the tag team titles, because I believe that these two teams should be facing off in the tag team titles. I personally would love to see the tag titles back on FTR, but I also think Santino Ortiz are the most deserving tag team to become the next tag team champions. Now, kind of with that being AEW, we kind of I'll just get to it. Sin Cara, we mentioned, had some shots about Reginald and his entrance, who I thought did it better. Why do we care about Sin Cara? Like, should we care about Sin Cara? Like, what is he doing that is even? Who cares, right? Like, am I wrong with saying like just get over it, dude? It's wrestling. Everybody mimics everyone. Like, just shut up and like say whether or not you enjoyed it or not.
The short answer is yes.
Yeah, it felt unnecessary.
Who should really be mad is Ricochet. Ricochet, when he first came along, he was doing all these amazing, high flying stunts and whatnot. But then here we got Reggie just like tumbling out of the ring like it's nothing. And if I were Ricochet, I'd be very mad right now.
No, well, I mean, Ricochet will just do it off ladders and then jump on everything. I mean, like between those two, I mean, I don't know if I'd probably put Pac in that one as well, but like my lord, are like just the acrobatic aerial like talents of these two are just phenomenal, and it makes me actually very happy to see them kind of getting a proper spotlight in the WWE as of late. Ricochet getting, I thought, a really great showing in Money in the Bank, and then now Reginald kind of having a chance. It's also nice to, even though I'm not a big fan of the 24/7 title, it is refreshing to see it on somebody not named R-Truth. So it is kind of nice to see somebody else get a shine, because I do think this is something for him. So with that being said, I guess it does serve a purpose, even though I'd rather maybe see something else. I'm going to clump both Raw and SmackDown together, simply because I don't think Raw was anything like much was to be taken away from Raw. But what were your guys' thoughts about Raw? What stood out to you? We'll start with Astrid on this one. Raw, SmackDown. Like, what were kind of takeaways from the two shows?
I feel like at this point I remember watching what happened on Raw. So like I'll go definitely to SmackDown. It was definitely a good show for me. I definitely loved seeing Sasha returning. Obviously, it was something that was predicted, but it's still fun to see it because you never know how they're gonna execute it. So I really enjoyed not only her but like Bianca's facial expressions as everything was going on. I feel like they sold this so well, from like the beginning with the save to the ending with the attack. That was really well done.
Alex.
Yes. My thoughts. My thoughts are as far as Raw. I have got more time for the Lily illusion. I want to see more of a puppet on my screen in funny scenarios. I know that's going to catch some heat in the Love Wrestling community, but as far as SmackDown, I did get to watch some recaps this morning. One thing I definitely want to say is I need a Paul Heyman a cappella album in my life. That will be my workout, playlist as I sit on my couch, I guess you could. But yeah, no. As far as like the Sasha Banks,
Are you gonna call it acapella?
acapella? No, money. Put it on a T-shirt. Yeah, no.
I'm an acapella guy.
Yeah, but no. As far as the Sasha Bianca thing, we all knew that Sasha was going to turn. I mean, she's a great heel, and they're going to play off that I didn't forget what you did to me at Mania. So just kind of doing the whole building it in a tag team match, and then after attacking Bianca, it's kind of an overplayed thing. Like Joe said, with having the team split up, you knew it was coming, so why not just do it right there during the promo and just get it over with?
See, you hit on something that is a big difference between WWE and AEW. WWE uses those tag teams as like in-betweens for setting up singles matches, whereas AEW actually uses it as an actual legitimate tag team division. Just putting that out there. That's a big difference when it comes to tag team philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume that we got rated by Speedball Bailey.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. 'Cause I can't tell on my side, but we definitely appreciate the raid. You are just and Mr. Bailey, I don't think we've met, but great to see you, great to meet you. Hopefully we can chat at some point. That would be just splendid. Yeah. Spencer says nice. I say splendid because mine is something you put it in a drink to. So
he says neat.
Yeah, no. We got Big Ben is angry, and I'm not gonna lie, Ben. Every time I see your name, I think of it something that it's saying something else. So it pops me every time. I will. Yeah. But Joe, before I get to you, just because I know you the best here, because I've known you the longest, that's pretty much why. But Karrion Kross won this week. The internet should be happy now, right? And I only say that because he did defeat Keith
please
Lee.
Everybody. No. Can't please everybody.
Everyone is up in arms about, Karrion Kross, what a match. But who cares? Keith Lee lost. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God. It's just one of those cesspools of like nobody's ever happy. But like your thoughts on Karrion Kross, Keith Lee, because just a few months ago this was the main event at Takeover, and now everyone's just saying it's a can't win situation on Monday Night Raw. What is going on with the internet? But your kind of thoughts on that aspect, because I thought they actually had a great match.
The internet is always going to be the internet the way it is. It's either going to be like inside of your own, like if you have like a wrestling group or whatnot, you kind of know what you're in for. You're in your own little bubble. But for the large part, and professional wrestling isn't exclusive to this on the internet, by the way, but it's a very, very toxic place where a lot of people voice opinions based on just emotional reaction and not off of actual experience or a real, cohesive thought that they're putting out there. It's just, a lot of it is just really emotional bullshit opinions. I'll just put that out there. That's just what it is, right? Anybody that goes on to any kind of wrestling Facebook group is going to see that kind of stuff. There's a lot of good stuff, but there's a lot of crap as well. And you got to be able to sift through that kind of stuff. But when it comes to Karrion Kross and Keith Lee on the main roster, I mean, ball dropped like right off the hop. I mean, you had Keith Lee lose in his hometown on a return. That's just a dumb move. That's booking 101. You have the hometown guy go over in your main event when you're at a place like that. And to bury your NXT champion against Jeff Hardy, nothing against Jeff Hardy. I love Jeff Hardy. but that was a wrong decision as well. So it set both guys up for failure.
See, like, I don't think it was a bearing. I honestly thought it was Vince McMahon trying to see what Karrion Kross was, and I got a takeaway that Karrion Kross was a bigger deal than Jeff Hardy after this match, and it was always one of those things where I was like, I'm remembering the name Karrion Kross after a loss more than I'm remembering the name Jeff Hardy after a win, and I thought that was a telling thing for me personally. About the hometown thing. When does anybody ever win in their hometown in the
Quite
WWE?
I was gonna say that too.
Quite often, yeah.
Like, because like Kurt Angle lost and
Lance Archer won the IWGP United States title, hometown.
I'm saying
Home
in
state.
WWE. We're in W.
Yeah, well,
So
if we're just talking WWE, then
I mean, Bret Hart got screwed in Canada, for God's sake.
right
In
but-
Canada, God forbid. Shame.
It's like-
No, and I just say it's one of those things where I don't know, like, man, like the fact that we're seeing Keith Lee and Karrion Kross on a Monday Night Raw is really cool to see, given where they were just over a year ago. So it's pretty surreal to see. Another guy that I think is also shining a little bit on Raw now is Damian Priest, and he had a great match with Sheamus in a number, which I think was a number one contenders match. But it's what I thought was a takeaway this week was just how much titles mattered this week in the world of WWE, which something doesn't always happen. Like whether or not we saw a 6-man tag over the Intercontinental, whether we saw a contender match for the U.S. title, whether or not we saw both tag teams kind of in action at some point. We saw both heavyweight champions, the women's champions. Like every title seemed to become more significant this week, which was a very nice thing for me personally. It made me feel like they mattered. But Damian Priest seems like he's going to be in line for the next U.S. championship match. I want to see where this goes because this is something that's intriguing to me. Joe, go right ahead.
Yeah, because you had mentioned about thoughts in general with Raw and SmackDown. I just wanted to put it out there in full transparency as well. You know, for the last couple of weeks, I have not watched either show because the majority of the interest and the hype has been based around AEW. You know what they've been doing with Jericho and that kind of stuff, right? So that maybe not so much this current week, but that last week was like the way that show was set up, the way it was booked and lined up. It was almost a perfect show, ending with Lance Archer, winning a title in his home state. I thought it was a beautifully done show, and just for me right now, and I've been one of their harshest critics as well. But AEW right now, at least when it comes to North American professional wrestling, has the most amount of interest for me. With WWE, it just seems like we're still kind of. I don't know. It's hard to even put into words. I mean, I've been talking about it ad nauseum at this point, but and then now we see the stuff with more people potentially getting let go. I scratch my head more and more each day when it comes to this company, and I want to like WWE. I've been one of their biggest fans for my entire life, but a lot of the moves they've been making lately, not digging it.
Yeah.
Well, I know someone who is a big WWE fan, and Astrid, I was going to go to you next because I know like you're a major supporter of WWE. What were your takeaways on kind of this week in that sense? And given what Joe just said, how do you respond to that? Seeing as WWE is something that you constantly always watch.
I feel like it makes me happy that there's more options so that way we can get entertained, and it's not just WWE at this point because I've been enjoying AEW a lot lately too. And from the WWE shows, I've been enjoying NXT the most and then SmackDown. So I'm glad we have more options because if not, I wouldn't be watching right now either. But the other thing that I want to say, and not being biased because I'm Puerto Rican, but I do want Damian Priest to win a championship soon. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'm happy somebody else picked up on that. I was appreciative of that. But it's also important. Like, that's the one thing that I think WWE does really well. And that is something that they understand that they have a fan base almost kind of selectively around the world, and they do try to give maybe not the best way at all times, but they do make sure that they touch on those kind of fans, and they do make sure that they have representation of that, especially when you go back to WrestleMania with the Bad Bunny, Damian Priest, they Puerto Rican fans and the Latino fans matter. Joe, hold on, I'm coming to you. But like it was very, very cool to see that because there has been a lot And that goes back to my days when I was watching Savio Vega and Los Baricua. Did I pronounce that correctly, by the way?
Yeah, you did really well.
Yeah. Oh, bad for a guy who failed French. But yeah, and I just thought it was always really cool to see. Joe, will get to you now. What do you have?
Because David Priest, he's one of these guys, especially if you followed him the majority of his career, coming out of Ring of Honor, Punishment Martinez. I mean, he was somebody just that, he was this over the top, sometimes literally over the top rope doing a lot of stuff, but just somebody who's like indestructible, right? And then coming out of NXT, we did some questionable stuff, and then after the WrestleMania thing, we had The Miz pin him with his pants around his ankles. Right, David Priest is somebody that you should never be making him look like a fool, like an idiot, like that, because it literally compromises what you've built up to that point, and then it's hard to build that back up again when you do something like that.
I mean, I would say that if your pants are in your ankles, you look more like a fool.
That's my point.
Speaking of people who aren't full, Alex, we haven't heard from you in a long time.
No, you're fine. I mean,
your kind of takeaways on the Damian Priest and kind of what we've been talking about, the titles from this week that I thought was a pretty positive direction.
Yeah, I definitely do think titles should be a main focus. I mean, that's why you're there as a wrestler. You're not there just to, put on a show necessarily, but you want the title. As far as Damian Priest, I never really saw him as Punishment Martinez, and I didn't quite see him that much as on NXT. To be honest, I've lost a little stock in him. He did the Bad Bunny match, he did the Zombies match, the Lumberjack match, and I need to see more from him before I can have a true opinion on him. I want to like the guy. Don't get me wrong. I want to see new talent brought up and pushed. But it's just, everything I've seen so far has just been kind of lackluster and, kind of watered down in that WWE form. If I can go back to Jeff Hardy and Karrion and the Keith Lee.
Yeah, before you do that, I just want to touch back and thank Throwback for the cheers that he sent us. And yes, we did talk about Bray Wyatt already. We may touch on him again. We'll see. But no, sorry, Alex, for interrupting you. I just wanted to show some love to the ones that shows love back.
It is all good. Yeah. The thing about the Jeff Hardy and Karrion thing, there has been a lot of negative talk about it. But here's the thing. They're talking about it. And I think that's what you need to look at is people are actually talking about it. They're not just saying, oh, well, it was just another match. It was a match where you have this guy named, Karrion coming up, NXT champion, and he's, going under on a guy like Jeff Hardy. And, you want a focus like that. You want to see what he's going to do next. And the fact that people are talking about this and the fact that people are talking about Keith Lee and Karrion is in no way negative publicity.
Yeah, and I think that's important that you touched on that because in pro wrestling, The Miz, I thought, said one of the best lines, in this business, you make it about you. And it's very true because if nobody wants to go out there and hear silence, they always want to hear some sort of whether it's cheering, booing across, depending if you're Roman Cena in the past, as long as they're making some noise. And it's the same thing even on social media. If they're not talking about you, you're going to fly under the radar very fast, very easily, and you're going to get forgotten. But if you're one of those guys that are always polarizing, at least doing something, whether it's a bad creative decision or you did something controversial, as long as people are talking about you, you're always going to stay in the news, and that's always going to help your career moving forward. Joe, we'll get to you.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out one person who I think has turned themselves around as a speak in WWE. And I want to get people's thoughts because I think this guy's a polarizing figure.
Yeah. I was just going to make mention to the most recent comment in the chat from Onryo San. I don't know if I'm saying that name, saying that WWE likes to hold back workers that they haven't made themselves or like homegrown people. You can make a very, very strong argument for that. That does definitely seem to be a trend that people that come from the outside in do tend to get hold back unless Vince really, really digs you. I think probably the best example would be AJ Styles. Mainly because he pulled them out of a jam when they needed somebody to basically travel across the world to do a show, and then Vince has been an AJ Styles guy ever since then. So either Vince loves you or he doesn't.
Well, and I know it's been something that I've heard about WWE saying if you're not a homegrown guy, they don't know what they have in you because Vince doesn't watch anything else. It's just a thing.
Yep.
He doesn't have time to. So don't fault the guy for being busy trying to run his company
Well-
as well as he can. He's made $1 billion in professional wrestling. He can do whatever he wants, in my opinion. But with that being said, it's one of those that if he doesn't know who you are, he wants to kind of almost break you down to see kind of your mental toughness, and then he wants to build you back up their way, because they do kind of do that. It's something that has been said, but at the same time, that's not necessarily always bad. I know we get stuck on sometimes wanting to see an act continue in kind of like what Malachi Black is doing in AEW with the eye and keeping the continuity. Continuity has been something that I think as fans we love just to see happen. But with that being said, like, it's just, I don't know, like it's just one of those things that we have to understand that sometimes if you're changing the worlds of companies, you're going to see some kind of refresh and kind of differences. So we got to just kind of learn to accept that and see kind of where that next chapter and direction go. Because sometimes it is the performer and not the company that decides to do this, like Nikki ASH that got a lot of negative reviews, but it was her idea. So we got to remember that sometimes the performers want to do this, and it's just not a creative decision. Speaking of polarizing, I want to talk about Baron Corbin. Somebody, a guy that we don't really ever talk a lot about for obvious reasons, but I thought lately this guy's been a standout in WWE. And this whole thing, being a guy who I thought was one of the most hated pro wrestlers in WWE for a while, and now is getting a lot of sympathetic kind of feelings. I'm going to go around your thoughts on Baron Corbin today, because I have newfound time for Baron Corbin. And I'll start with Alex.
Yeah, he is definitely paying the price from Money in the Bank last year, where he broke a mirror. So, he's got 7 years. It's going to be a downward spiral for him. And so far, it's been fun. And I think that's where everybody's enjoying it is, we've seen this guy be the king and be on top and be a GM. And now to see him kind of being in the gutter has been kind of a payoff for where he was about a year ago. And it's been fun.
Astrid, your thoughts on Baron Corbin now?
I have loved Baron since NXT. I'll say that. I always wanted him to shine, and I'm glad he's finally getting that moment now to show off. But I've enjoyed him for so long, and I always wanted him to get like a proper spotlight. So it'll be nice if this is the start of him getting that, because the reaction that he got when he had that contract in his hands it was priceless to me. I loved it.
Yeah. Sorry, Cody's talking about Cesaro. Did you know that Cesaro loves wrestling? Just going to point that one out. And we love Cesaro. But also throwback, I just want to say, don't worry about being apologetic. It is completely fine. This is newsworthy regardless. Bray Wyatt being released, huge news. Joe, your thoughts on Baron Corbin? I just say this because it just seems like a pleasant surprise of a resurgence of Baron Corbin, which I think if he's in the right direction can become a main event guy in WWE. And I think that's what they need at this point. And I think if he's be able to hit the main event scene in a sympathetic role, man, just imagine what this next heel turn could be like for WWE.
I'm glad that this is being brought up because, coming out of NXT, for those who were watching the network at the time, I believe the show was called Breaking Ground, where they were kind of showing some behind the scenes stuff. We saw stuff with Nia Jax, where they were like, we're going to call you up, and then but you have to try and make help with your physique a little bit. She didn't live up to that promise, unfortunately.
Before you go on, Joe, I just want to say thank you, Tom Collahue, for the raid. Very much appreciated. Sorry to cut you off, but.
Then we saw it with Baron Corbin on that same show where he very much felt like entitled. He's like, no, I should be the champion around here. He had that kind of cocky, know-it-all attitude, and then it looks like they kind of knocked him down a few pegs after that. Thankfully, because you had mentioned that he's probably one of the most hated guys in WWE. Mission accomplished, because he is a bad guy, he's a heel, and that's how you're supposed to feel about the bad guys. He should be the most hated guys. He should be the one signing autographs for the fans and that kind of stuff at merch tables and stuff like that. As a heel, you stay far away from that and you maintain that bad guy persona until you are finished, until you become a face again, or there's going to be some kind of turn. But he does it beautifully, and I'll probably get some heat over this. I think he's the best heel in the company.
Yeah. Tom Collahue, we went live talking about Bryce. I thought we'd come over and talk here to keep talking wrestling. We appreciate that, Tom. We're talking Baron Corbin right now because it is quite interesting to see what he is doing, what he's kind of evolved into now, which I think is really, really entertaining. I have a lot of time for. I'd agree when it comes. It seems like WWE has a different side of heels for almost everyone. Miz seems to be more of the comedy heel that's entertaining. Baron Corbin's more of the I just want to hate him heel. But then you also have, Roman Reigns, where it's just like it's a respect heel. Like it's like, oh, he's just doing it
That's
really
dangerous.
good. Like,
And that's
Yeah.
because that's the kind where your audience could turn on the narrative that you're trying to project, right? Because if they're not careful, Roman's going to turn into a good guy, and that would be a disaster for him because he's killing as a heel. But you need to ride that fine line of where you're not getting over, because you shouldn't be getting over as a bad guy. You should be getting booed out of the building. Everybody despises you. You have no redeemable factors whatsoever. That's what a true heel or bad guy should be.
Yeah, and this is kind of where you got to put the right baby faces with him,
Correct.
just to make sure that you're ensuring this. Because if he's getting paired against guys that the fans are just saying, I don't want to cheer for that guy, I'm going to cheer for Roman instead. It's not Roman's fault at this point. It is the direction's fault, because it's not his fault that he's just really good at his job. Over time, people nowadays, they have the understanding and they have the love and passion for professional wrestling, that they see the difference between a guy who can mail it in and a guy really putting in the work. And I think we saw that over time with John Cena, of all people. People really saw that. Now we're kind of seeing John Cena getting monstrous ovations and not that mix like he used to go, which is really cool to see, because if there's one person who deserves it, I think that's John Cena. I just want to get to Tom his comment. The big stuff is mostly about Bray talking so much. His name was on one of the Nick Khan's release a little while ago, but was taken off because he had some huge fans at the WWE top table. But the Swarm fight was massively unpopular and basically ended cinematic movie matches in WWE.
How about that?
Yeah, it sucked. I'll be blunt. That one sucked. It was kind of weird. But what was cool about it, the takeaway, we saw the introduction to Alexa Bliss with that whole thing. So at least something came up that was creatively entertaining.
But
yeah.
therein lies part of the issue with that is, if that's a heel persona, you shouldn't find it entertaining. You should absolutely despise what's going on. And that's where, like, when you're not playing across the right good guy character, like you said, Parrish, then the heel aspect of it falls apart, because then they're gravitating towards the other person to cheer.
Yeah, and please, after Alex, please chime in. Shut me up if you want to chime in. But like, that's why I think John Cena was so polarizing, because on one grasp we had all the kids who loved him, but then he was getting drowned out by all the adults and the more mature audience that wanted to tell him to go F off. I always thought that was so cool, because it's almost like Rey Mysterio met RVD, and you kind of brought that in, and it was like, or like Bayley met Becky Lynch, and like the NXT Bayley, because that Bayley never really seemed to resonate with the WWE fans when she was on the main roster, which I know, Joe, you love that term, and I said that just for you, buddy.
NXT is part of the main roster. It's the best product they have, in my humble opinion. Fight me.
So this coming in per Meltzer, because Meltzer, why it was told as a release was due to budget cuts. He's been preparing to return in August.
Yeah, I call BS on that one.
But so like, I know we touched on Raw and SmackDown. We haven't talked about NXT yet, so I'm going to give the floor to both Astrid and Alex on this one to begin it. Your takeaways from NXT this week, because I know, Astrid, you're very close to the NXT, so how about you start this one off?
Oh. So let's see. Okay, so first the part with Joe, obviously that was the opening and the closing, so that was really enjoyable to watch. I'm like, I feel like it was so fast, but I enjoyed it a lot. Seeing Joe, come here and take that range is like, I'm gonna be part of the roster now and going against crossable people. That's gonna be exciting.
What are your thoughts about the in-ring return of Samoa Joe? Because of all the news coming out this week, we're getting an in-ring return of Samoa Joe, and that's just getting thrown under the rug with all the other stuff coming in. But this is huge news. How excited, from a scale of hell yeah to oh my god, I'm going to wet myself, are you about Samoa Joe coming back in the world of professional wrestling?
I'm like, all the way at the top. I am so excited about this.
Yeah, like, is anybody not excited
Right?
about Samoa Joe coming
Mhm.
back? Like,
All the possibilities though in NXT though after that. It's
Yeah.
like that's all I can think about.
yeah, and sign me up for Pete Dunne and Samoa Joe when
Yeah.
he's on with
Same.
Chaos. I think we're.
Same.
But yeah, Alex, your thoughts on NXT, your takeaways. I know Hester touched on Samoa Joe. That was pretty big. But let's just like your takeaways from NXT. What did you think when you saw it, read it? Like, did you watch it?
I caught clips. Yeah, I very much enjoyed Reed versus Cole, and I'm excited to see where they go with O'Reilly Cole 2 or 3 or 18, whatever it is right now. And as far as Joe, oh hell yeah, I'm excited to see him back as an in-ring competitor. I was, putting him on commentary is probably the worst place you could, because he's such a good in-ring competitor. And I think they did an interesting way of bringing him back. I think they brought him back in an interesting way of having him be, an enforcer, and then just like, no, screw this, I want to be in the ring. I've got time for that, and I've got time for Joe. I've been a big fan for a long time. Yeah, just ready for it. Just ready to see every single match that could come with that idea of him being there.
Yeah. And before I get to you, Joe, I just want to say NXT TakeOver 36 added Walter versus Ilya Dragunov. Joe, go, because I know this is a match that you're going to want to watch.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I have all the time in the world for Samoa Joe. I mean, not only do we share a first name, but I've been a fan of his since his Ring of Honor days, since his Impact days, and I thought it was a huge mistake getting rid of them. And thankfully, WWE realized their mistake and backpedaled on that. And again, I think that, as I just hinted at earlier, that this notion of NXT still being developmental, we need to get that out of our heads. NXT, when you ask most WWE fans, they will tell you that there's their favorite product. They say that that's the best brand they have. It's time to take guys like Joe, guys like Gargano, Pete Dunne, these guys, and you actually build a roster around them instead of just sending them up to Raw and SmackDown where they fade away into oblivion for the large part. There are some that buck that trend, but it's time to build NXT as that legitimate third brand and kill the stigma of developmental, because it's not anymore.
No, I think we all can agree that it's a third brand. I think it is the Performance Centers is developmental.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think we can all just agree that the PC is where you go to develop, and because of the close relationship between NXT and the PC, just from men,
And we've
NXT is where you want to be if you're in WWE. Let's be honest, because not only do you get some of the best training quite possible, there's 7 rings in that PC, which is insane. It is just an amazing building. But you're getting tutelage from Triple H, Shawn Michaels, William Regal. I think
he's over there now too.
Steve Corino, who the most talk about guys that I loved in ECW that just don't get the love today. Steve Corino, and he's a Canadian boy, so shout out to that.
And the other thing too that NXT has going for it, we've got the storyline with LA Knight and Cameron Grimes with Ted DiBiase. It's like one of the most entertaining, funny stories that is going in WWE right now. It's legitimately entertaining watching Cameron Grimes being LA Knight's butler, as such, for lack of a better term. It's comedy gold. It's absolutely fantastic.
And one of the nice things too is we're seeing Cameron Grimes actually be happy and excited to be the butler,
right?
Which you always thought that this was going to be a punishment.
That was great.
But now we're seeing LA Knight instructing Cameron Grimes to strike Drake Maverick, and he does that without just the story told with that one punch. That is where storytelling is. If you haven't watched it, that's storytelling. You're seeing so many emotions go through one scene right there, and it's just one punch. And there's so much emotions out of it, and that is what I personally love about professional wrestling. The one performer out of NXT that I want to talk about, and I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh yeah, I want to talk about Gigi Dolan. I think this is a star in the making in the female division. We haven't talked a lot about the females this week. I know we talked a lot last week, but I just want to touch on your guys' opinions, and because like we're seeing Dakota Kai, she
I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
Raquel Gonzalez, and it seems like Raquel Gonzalez is primed to go to a Raw or SmackDown down the road, and Dakota Kai could be getting. Well, it is what it is. But with that being said, there's no guarantee that it'll happen. But with that being said, if Dakota Kai is the one that takes the title away, we could see a resurgence in the female division, the women's division in NXT. I think Gigi Dolan is somebody that I have a lot of time for. Also, if you're going to come out to an instrumental of Marilyn Manson, you're awesome in my books. But kind of your thoughts, and I'll go open forum here. Your thoughts on the female roster, but your thoughts on Gigi Dolan, because I think this is somebody to look out for.
I'll take it first if nobody else is ready.
Not everybody at once, but yes, I can't believe I'm saying that again.
It's cool seeing her again. Obviously, I was a big fan of spoiler for don't know who Gigi Dolan is. That's formerly Priscilla Kelly. She was absolutely fantastic in the Mae Young Classic. I thought she did really well there. There's been some downside stuff with some of the gimmicks on the independent scene. For those of us in the bubble, or maybe a little bit turned off her because of that. But I mean, she's obviously still a great talent. But what I think we need to really start, because we made this big push, women's wrestling being a big thing, but we need to actually start, and our own Josh Robinson has railed on this as well as I have, to actually give the women and the girls a legitimate shot and give them their time to actually shine. I even got as far as saying I think that they should have their own show. I think you take the women off of Raw and SmackDown and NXT and you give the women their own show and actually give them a chance to spotlight. I think that would be absolutely money. Drop them. Done.
Alex, go!
Yeah,
pick that mic up and talk.
I think I've got there's a lot of great women competitors on the roster. I know Priscilla Kelly from Priscilla Kelly. I haven't seen her on NXT quite yet, but I think that they should be spotlighted a lot more. There's just so much good talent, and they could do so much with it. And we talked last week about potential of a Queen of the Ring, and I think that would be a great place for them to do it.
Yeah, I would love to see Queen of the Ring be an all like Raw, SmackDown, and NXT brand.
One night too.
The idea I had last week is having a bracket of Raw superstars, SmackDown superstars, UK, and NXT, and having that as a format for this Queen of the Ring. I still think that'd be good. I even thought about it. I'm still for it.
One night too is the key. One night.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't like a good one-night stand?
That way people don't lose interest in the investment.
I don't know if we can call it a one-night stand and have women on there, though. I'm just no offense to anybody, but yeah.
Well,
you have it be its own.
With that being said, Ashford, here's thoughts. Sorry. Gigi Dolan, the females of NXT, and your thoughts on Queen of the Ring.
Yeah, I thought about it because it made me think back of like Survivor Series, because Survivor Series was so good with NXT being involved. It was so different, and I loved how it played out on TV. Obviously, because of COVID, we didn't get to do it like that this past year. But that's why I want Queen of the Ring to be involved with NXT as well, because there's so much talent that people haven't seen. Some people don't watch NXT still. So there's so much talent they're missing out on a weekly basis. That would be good for them to have that spotlight in Queen of the Ring if they show up on Raw and SmackDown as well. And not only that, but having the Raquel and Dakota part, even though we knew it was coming, I loved seeing it too. From Priscilla, I hadn't really watched her before, so I really want to see what it's like for her in NXT so far and how they decide to bring her up in that aspect, because I really want to see how talented she is. I've never really seen her much.
Yeah. Cody said, can't talk NXT without talking Hit Row, can you? No, because I'm saving Hit Row for the main event, brother, because I think Legado del Fantasma and Hit Row has been fantastic so far. I wanted to end with this because I would really love to see an NXT episode end with a 6-man tag between the three of these, which set up for that North American title. Like, maybe do this right before the takeover. It would be absolutely money, with maybe Swerve and Santos Escobar kind of facing off. I just think eventually when these guys have the match, it's going to be amazing. Let's just touch base on this, and then I do have one last topic I want to talk about before we end off. So Joel, I'll start with you. Hit Row against Legato.
Dude, like Hit Row's been like great, like right out the gate. I mean, Swerve, I have again all the time in the world for him, and him against Santos Escobar. I mean, I've said I totally get like Eddie Guerrero vibes off of Santos Escobar. That dude is like super effing talented. I had to censor myself there. Sorry, Spencer. But yeah, I think that's great, and I do want to see more of a spotlight on NXT. But hot take, possibly her conspiracy theory ish, is that I think that WWE is a little afraid to spotlight NXT because I think they know people are going to gravitate away from Raw and SmackDown when they see just how legitimately good it is. Because again, NXT is the best product that WWE has right now, and I'm going to include NXT UK in there because people are ignoring that show, and that show is absolutely fantastic as well.
Yeah, and I just don't want to point out SummerSlam weekend. We're going to see NXT main event that weekend. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the takeaway is with NXT being the show that comes after SummerSlam this year. Alex, I'm going to go to you because, again, I'm going to finish off with Astrid on this one. Your thoughts on Hit Row against Legato?
As far as this, I haven't seen too much of it, unfortunately. What I will comment on is the last takeover they had Bronson and MSK versus not even gonna try Legend have a tag, 6-man tag team match, and it was really well done. So I'm looking forward myself to see what they're gonna do in the future.
Yeah, and now Astrid, we'll go to you. I thought you were going to take a little bit longer. I wanted to
Sorry.
It's all good. But we'll finish off with you, Astrid. Your thoughts on Legato against Hit Row. Just kind of your thoughts on everyone individually, and maybe just as this feud is taken off. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have been enjoying Hit Row. I want to see what else they decide to do. And with Legato, at least, I like how it hasn't been like stereotypical most of the time for us Hispanics in the show, which this is the part that I talk about always on the What Report. I like that part of it. I like that it's been different for them, and it hasn't been a stereotype they usually do, especially in WWE, but in wrestling altogether. So I really want to see what else they decide to do with them. And then having them versus Hit Row is definitely priceless. I'm really excited for that match.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to touch on, because I think it's very cool to see. I'm cool about Edge against Seth Rollins. I'm sorry, but I know we were asked what we thought about where was it right here? There's something about Roman, and I can't find it, so I'm going to pass it because I'm lazy. But Roman against John Cena. We'll get to that some other time because I think a lot has to be played out. Edge versus Seth Rollins to me is a match that I don't think I ever thought I was going to ever see. And now that Edge came back, we're getting a lot of these matchups, which I think is really refreshing and really cool. Seth Rollins lately, I think, has established himself really as a Hall of Fame talent in WWE. What are your guys' thoughts on Seth Rollins versus Edge? Because this, to me, is almost, if not more, than a championship match. It's almost one of those mega matches. Joe, I'm going to start with you.
So I'm going to come at this from an angle that people probably aren't expecting because, with so much of the stuff that's been kind of going on, with AEW, with a lot of other stuff that I've been watching, even watching matchups. I'll throw in a shameless plug here, Parrish. Watching our friends down in Southern Florida with Ignite Wrestling, which is going to be a matchup coming up this week on Turnbuckle Rewind. Honestly, this thing with Edge and Seth Rollins has kind of flown below the radar for me. Honestly, it's just one of those things with all the other things going on has caught my attention more. And this is one that, I know it's going to be a good match, but it just hasn't hit on the radar for me. I'm sure and I'm hoping maybe it will when I actually go to watch it. But as of right now, I don't have any investment in it. It's nothing against the actual match, but what they got going on, just there's been too much of other stuff going on, and it's flown below the radar for me.
Yeah. No more buckle bombs, but the one thing I do want to come out of this, and it'll be a happy accident if we get it. If we can get a Beth Phoenix versus a Becky Lynch match out of this, I am excited. But with that being said, I'll go to Astrid because you've been closing off all the other topics lately. Your thoughts on Edge versus Seth Rollins?
I've been a Seth fan from the beginning here, and since I watched him in NXT, so seeing this match, I feel like the long-term storytelling from before and how they connected it. I'm really excited. I seeing all the Edge matches so far have been so good. And I just I want to see who else he's going to face after Rollins as well. I'm like, does he have a list? Because I want to know what this list is about, because there's been so many good storytelling with him lately. I want to know what will be next after this as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this a lot.
Yeah. So Alex, you're the last one, buddy. Your thoughts on Seth Rollins?
When I saw, and I mean, you could have, with a little bit of foresight, you could have seen this happen. But when I saw Seth come out and attack Edge during Money in the Bank, I didn't know this was a match I wanted to see. And now that I've thought about it more and more, I'm definitely I'm geared up for it. But I'm also very held back. I'm not putting all my eggs into this basket, because this is one of those matches with potential to look good on paper, but be a flash in the pan in practice. I want it to be so good. Both these guys are great in-ring competitors, but it just, like I said, it has the potential to be something so lackluster that we don't want to see it again.
I did that, Joe, so people would see, because I know you usually have your Twitter handle on your name, so I wanted to make sure people saw that in case they're like, oh, what's his Twitter handle? Or what, anything like that. So I just wanted to make sure people saw your name.
Let me add that in there for you guys.
But yeah, I know one of the things I'm really looking forward to seeing about Edge and Rollins is the ability of how Edge is, because even with when Edge is coming back, I'm seeing a lot of old school still in Edge and his game, and I'm seeing that being brought in everything he does. Like him versus Orton is just two amazing superstars, like two of some of our generation's best. When we're growing up, just doing their thing. They're having fun and just reliving magic that they had back in the day. But then when he's facing off against Roman Reigns, we're seeing him and Roman just have this different style match that is just so good. Like that match of Money in the Bank was just so good. And Alex, you nicely said, you can definitely see this a mile away, unless your name is Spenny Love and you're going to bank a Love Wrestling Elite Championship on the line about this. Maybe you can't, but I mean, it's okay. It's okay. But I'm just really interested to see how Edge is going to kind of put his spin on Seth Rollins matches nowadays, because Seth Rollins is such a great professional wrestler, very, very various in the sense of which way he can go. But this is just going to make Seth Rollins even better. And for that, I like it, because Seth Rollins has been in that position where he's helping out and elevating guys, whether it was Kevin Owens the last couple of years or Cesaro just this last WrestleMania. It's just been absolutely refreshing to see what Seth Rollins has been doing for other superstars. And now Edge kind of coming in helping Seth, I think, is going to be cool, because Seth it really is time to kind of get back into the main event now, if you ask me. So I think that's really cool. Joe, thank you for running in. Thank you for coming in different parts of your hometown, giving us the grand tour of your house, kind of. Where can people find you? Your takeaways on this week of wrestling. So yeah, let's just do that. Your last takeaway of this week in professional wrestling. What is one thing that you want to give maybe a little bit of a plug that we haven't talked about, and then let us know where we can find you on the web?
Yeah, for sure. My big takeaway from this week of professional wrestling was just the great the buzz being around the professional wrestling business. It has a lot of people talking, which is really, really cool and beneficial. And it's put a bit of a smile again. For those maybe watching here for the first time, you will find that I am a little bit critical, but I do it because I love professional wrestling, and I do it not out of hate, out of providing a path to improving things, to making the overall product better. That is the method to my madness when it comes to this kind of stuff. So, it's just been great to see people talking about professional wrestling again. That's my big takeaway from this. When it comes to plugs, coming up this week on Turnbuckle Rewind, the show that I do for Love Wrestling with Carl Carafel, we are going to be kind of stepping out of our comfort zone, so to speak, a little bit, and not covering a match from a major promotion. We are going to be going from our friends down in Southern Florida with Ignite Wrestling, being run by Kim Artlup. We've had her on Turnbuckle Talk quite a few times, so you can go and check out those episodes. You can find them on our feed. It is a matchup for a number one contender for their women's championship. This was back in 2020. Avery Taylor versus Haley Cromwell versus Sophia Castillo versus somebody that you have seen on AEW television in Dream Girl Ellie. So that is going to be the matchup that we're covering this week for Turnbuckle Rewind. And as you can see, hopefully below my name there, you can find me at TB Talk Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yeah. Alex, your takeaways of this week, something maybe that we haven't talked about first, and where can we find you on the place that we have to pay a lot of money to watch TV for?
Yeah, wrestling is definitely very objective and subjective. It is art in its purest form. There's a reason why they call it a canvas. It can be the greatest thing that you've ever seen, or it could just be like a noodle painting that your kid did that you've hung on the fridge. It is a very interesting time for wrestling right now, especially with all the eyes that are on it, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes next, because everybody's going to try and one up each other in any sort of way that they can. As far as where you can find me, behind me on the board, there's Twitch, Twitter, Steam, and Epic Games. And later tonight, I will be right back with Blowing Off Stream for some fun time. And hey, if you want to, my handle there it is. Ecto Guy 87. I'm always looking for stuff to watch. So if you've got an interesting wrestling match for me to check out, come into my DMs, slide in my DMs a little bit, and hit me up with some of those interesting wrestling clips that you got.
Or send him the naughty stuff.
Yeah,
Astrid, same goes to you. Something that maybe we haven't talked about that you want to give a little bit of a shout out to, and where can people find you and not slide into your DMs, because I don't know if you want that.
Just like Joe was saying, it's just nice to see people talking about wrestling. There's always, we see so many people talk about Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW this week. So much talk about so many things. And I feel like it's such a great time to be a wrestling fan, because we see a little bit of everything now, and so much diversity, and the talents that are so versatile as well. We get to see a little bit of everything, and it's nice to see that in every show. And I've been enjoying wrestling this past couple of weeks lately, at least.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And people, if you do want to follow Astrid, where can you follow her?
Well, my Twitter is Astrid Pizarro, like my name, and I guess my Instagram that I barely use is Astrid Pizarro 20.
And people, if you want to slide into DMs, just understand she's Puerto Rican and she'll probably kick you in the face. So be careful.
And just like Alex, I'll be on for or later on for the show as well. Double feature.
Joe, well, there he is. Joe will be there too.
Yes, I will be
excited for it.
Yeah.
Okay. One last thing I wanted to touch on, and that was in regards to Natalia. She did undergo an MRI on her ankle. And it is believed that she could be going to Binghamton for a surgery potentially. So we just want to say, if anything happens to Natty, get well soon. You are definitely a rock in that female division. With Bailey gone, they need some guidance from a great veteran like yourself. Yeah. So hopefully nothing is seriously wrong, because the women tag titles are in jeopardy right now. But you can find me at Chris Parrish, Chris.Parrish on the Instagram, at the Chris Parrish on the Twitch. And please, if you guys are free tonight and you guys want to say, hey, where can we see you guys more? Because apparently an hour and a half is not enough. You can follow us tonight, which I believe is it 10 o'clock Eastern?
10 o'clock, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're doing 10.
But yeah, 10 o'clock Eastern for Blowing Off Stream, which I think we're playing Jackbox. If I paid attention to her Slack correctly. I don't know. Everyone talks a lot on there, except for me. But yeah, no, we'll be there. And make sure you check us out. Same time tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern for Sunday Brunch tomorrow. For myself, for Joe, for Alex, and for Astrid, we want to thank everyone for coming in. And please check us out later tonight for Blowing Off Stream. This has been your weekly Reacts. We want to say thank you, love wrestling as much as you can, make sure you go to all our socials, follow us up, and make sure that you remember one thing, and that is Spencer is sus, and we are seeing you
Always.
later tonight. Always. All right, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.